Hello, everybody. It's Sue Cook here from Brainbuzzz. And as you know, I'm a neurodevelopment specialist. Now, recently, I had the pleasure of meeting the amazing Amber, who has had some chats with me on Zoom so far. But the conversation was taking such an interesting and potentially so many rabbit holes turn that we really felt that we needed to record this and share it because we have such different skills and such different ways of looking at things. And so that gave such an immensely deep insight into not only both of the things that we do, but that would help a lot of people out there. So here we are recording this for you. We don't know where this is going to go. And we're probably going to pick up on where we were last time. So how are you today, Amber?
I'm fabulous. So I've been really looking forward to this. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time for us to just continue the conversations and record them and hopefully, just give something for other people to think about and to take some golden nuggets away from things. Like I can agree with you more. The conversations that we've had have gone through so many different rabbit trails, but also just the fact that we come from two very different angles, but ultimately we are both highly invested in people
Yeah.
and their development and their growth and their quality of life, I think is the biggest way to put it. That even coming at it from the angles that we do,
Yeah.
there's so much convergence. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to what we can discuss
It,
today.
it was like when we were talking, things just came into such beautiful focus. And that's what we liked about the conversation, wasn't it? Because the first time we spoke, we talked about human design and
Yeah.
we talked about neurodevelopment, and you showed me my chart, which was really, really interesting. And then the last conversation we had, we talked about your son, didn't we? What happened there?
Good. Oh my goodness. So, guys, if you've this conversation was so it sounded so simple, didn't it, Sue? When you said what you said to me about this, it felt so simple coming out of your mouth, and yet it completely shifted my trajectory and was like a penny drop moment. So, for those, you most of you probably don't know me. So my son is 11, and he is neurodivergent. We can say we don't have a diagnosis as of yet, so we're still going through that process, and that's a bit going on. But he has very strong tendencies to go into fight or flight mode. And usually when it's at home, because it's safe, he goes into the fight mode. So I'd walked into the room to speak to him about something, and I cannot remember now what it was that I spoke to him about. But I walked into his bedroom. I'm standing in the doorway. I'm facing him front on, and I said something to him, and he said to me, "What? Why are you so angry? Why are you angry at me?" I was like, I'm not. I wasn't angry. Nothing about what I was saying was from a place of anger, stress. I didn't raise my voice, and I was a bit like, "Whoa, okay." And he was really like, you could see the aggression, the tenseness in his body, like really affronted. And I was talking to you, wasn't I, Sue, about it, and I said, and she said, "Were you face to face with him? Were you face on to him?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Ah, there we go." And the small shift that you said that you spoke about was that when you're face to face with a male and you're having a conversation, it can feel very confrontational. And so I can't remember how you described this neurologically, so I'd love to get you to fill back in on that, Sue. But
Okay. So,
just
so
that shift of moving to his side,
yeah.
that if I had stood away to one side of him, how that could have changed the whole dynamic to how
Yeah.
he perceived that situation. So that was like the first penny drop. I want to let you explain the neurological side, and then I want to go into something else because this will be really interesting. Go for it.
Oh, okay. So I think I learned this years ago from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or one of those things. It's something I've known for decades. And it's that, like, us women, we'll sit down when we have coffee, we'll sit opposite each other and we'll be, and then, and all this. And we love that face to face thing. It's exciting and we feel engaged and we feel connected with other women when we do that. Men do not cope well with face to face because they are the hunters. They're out there, aren't they, being the hunter-gatherer for us staying at home around the fire, historically, maybe, if they're talking in cliches. But so men, if you're face onto them, they see that as a massive aggression and attack. And if you think about the activities men often do, not always, and women can do these as well. But so men do fishing where they're standing next to each other with their fishing rod and they stand, or they're watching a football match and they're next to each other, or they're driving in the car and they're next to each other. And those are very much men hobbies, and they're next to each other. And then when they're next to each other, it's called sidelong conversation. They feel unthreatened and they feel able to talk. And I work with a lot of children. Most of my practice is children, and some of them don't like going to school. They get very upset by all of that, and so my body language is a massive thing in those situations. So I always sit next to them and just pretend like I'm not really interested, a little bit checked out. So there's absolutely no threat. There's nothing challenging, and it's all very chill. And I might talk about something over there, and they're here. They might even be facing me, but I'm not looking at them really. I might look at them a bit, and stuff like that. And that way they feel safe, and you can build rapport, you build engagement with them, and then you can get along happily. Whereas if I'm sitting facing them, come on, you've got to do this. It's like, oh, you're going to have a meltdown on your hands. So and it works in practice. And so when you told me about walking into the room and your son getting angry, or thinking you were angry, I knew immediately what the issue was. And just something so simple, isn't it? Because you had such a mic drop moment, didn't you? And you were like, oh my God.
It was just like, oh, I could see it as soon as you mentioned it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can see how that could be confrontational, especially when I'm coming in to speak about something serious as well. So even though I wasn't angry, it was something that to me was important to get across, or to, and again, I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah.
The other thing that was a mic drop moment for me. So I'm trained as an advanced clinical hypnotherapist. And one of the things about running in-person hypnotherapy sessions, one of the most crucial things about creating safety, a sense of safety and trust for a client that is coming in for a session. Now, a lot of the clients that I work with are people that are suffering with anxiety. So a huge amount of my clients come because they're struggling with anxiety. So they're already in a state of fear and have probably been in a heightened state of fear for quite a long period of time. And so the last thing we want to do is to add to that. In order for you to go into a nice deep state of hypnotherapy, we want to be inducing states of calm and relaxation and safety within the body. And so the way that we set up a room for a client is very important. And these are things that, unless you've trained in that field, that you wouldn't even know are happening. It's not something I say to my clients, well, I'm going to sit you here so that you can see the door and you've got a clear exit. I wouldn't say that to my client, but I know when I'm setting up a space that I want to make sure that I am clear of the door, that I'm not in their line of access to being able to leave a room, because not feeling like you're trapped in a room doesn't make you feel very safe. So as soon as you mentioned that, I had the mic drop moment of course I'm face on, front face on, but then also the moment of going, oh, and from all of the training I've done, silly me, I'm standing right in the doorway. I've blocked the exit strategy. I've blocked.
But also, when you're dealing with clients, that because that's the situation you have when you're working. You're at home, you're relaxed, you're not even thinking about that's going to be an issue. And it was, and that's just so interesting, isn't it?
It is absolutely fascinating. So, I mean, that's changed so much. And since we had that conversation, actually, so we just want to I haven't spoken to you about this, but I've made a very conscious effort now, whenever there's something that we've had serious to talk about. And in fact, rather than going to him, which is what I would usually do, let him stay where he is and go to him, I've actually just said, come to me, and allowed him to put himself wherever he felt comfortable to be within the space. And that's made a huge difference to...
Where did he sit?
So an example from last night, I was in my bedroom and I was sat on the bed and I was just relaxed there, and he came and sat himself on the opposite kind of corner, but again, not facing me, almost side on back to me, but still conversing to me, not looking at me, not really
having... There you go, no confrontation. So he's engaging with you, but he's not looking at you. He's not, and so that's how he's comfortable. And so in rapport, that's how you might want to consider working with him. So you sit down sort of with your semi back to him and like you're getting on with something, and he's comfortable with that because that's how he behaves.
Yeah, 100%. And to bring this to also through to a little bit of a human design angle. So my son's a manifesting generator. So in human design, for anybody who doesn't know, we have 5 design types at the foundation of your human design. And so we have our manifestors, our generators, our manifesting generators, our projectors, and our reflectors. And I won't go into all of them, but my son is a manager. And so as a manager, one of the key things to kind of understand is that, first of all, I've got all of these notifications and I don't know how to silence them. Sorry. First of all, the the first thing to understand that as a manager, one of the most important things is that a manifesting generator can follow their sacral. And what that means is they're literally designed to respond to the world around them and to respond based on their sacral fire, their sacral lit up. So the sacral yes is like, oh yes, I'm here for this, I'm in love with this, I want to do that, I want to put my energy into it. And the sacral no, it will feel like a contraction in the body, it will make you want to pull away. Why this is so important for us to understand whenever we're communicating, interacting with other people, is that if you have someone who is born to respond, and they're born to respond from sacral, and children are not that heavily conditioned. Of course, the older we get, the more conditioned we get, but children do this very naturally. And so he's responding in the moment to whatever's going on around him. And in the moment, if his sacral says, no, and I continue to go in with my yes, because I'm like, well, it's important to me and I'm going to have to talk about it, but his entire body is rejecting it. What we end up with this force misalignment, because I'm trying to force his energy to go somewhere that it doesn't want to go. I don't want to go to this conversation. This isn't for me. This isn't where I want to be. This situation isn't for me. And I'm trying to force that situation and the conversation and everything to go where I want it to go. Yeah. And so his energy's already shut down. It's already contracted. The other thing about the manifesting generator is that when they're in full alignment, they feel a deep sense of satisfaction. If you think about satisfaction in your body, you think about relaxation. I'm to be satisfied and content.
Breathe out.
Peace. Breathe out. But the opposite of that, the not self theme, when a manifesting generator's in misalignment, is frustration and anger. Yeah. So we can tell when energy is not being used sustainably by the manager, because we start to see frustration and anger come out.
Yeah.
And so his one thing that helped me in that situation is that I'm very much aware of that. I'm very much aware that when he tips over into frustration and anger, it's a sign that he's in a state of misalignment. And that's actually really helped me in my communication with friends, partners, clients that I work with, family members, because what it's helped me to understand is that anger wasn't about me in that moment.
Yeah.
I think we take people's emotions very personally.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
A lot of the time. But to understand that actually what that was really saying is that his energy, he was in misalignment at that moment.
Yeah.
And how could I create more alignment for him? How could I give him the space to use his energy in the way to use it?
And it's powerful, that insight. Just that one simple thing, it's changed your whole household.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magical. I just want to pick up on the fight and flight thing, Sue, because I'm going to come at this from a human design perspective. I'm going to let you come at it from your perspective and we'll see where we go. So I remember one of the conversations that we had, we spoke about trauma, and we spoke about how events that happen in our lives, we process differently. And one of the things that I find most fascinating about this, and I'm just going to continue to use this scenario with my son at the moment. So he has a defined splenic center in his chart, and the splenic center is the center of intuition, it's the center of our well-being, but it's also where we experience fear, because fear, it literally is the thing that we're wired to be and to keep us safe. So we
Yeah.
fear because we believe that something may not be safe for us, it may not be secure for us, it may be bad for our well-being or our health or our survival. So we could say the spleen is connected so deeply to our sense of survival. Now, somebody with a defined spleen has consistent, reliable energy access to those themes in their life. And so we tend to find that people with defined splenic centers are quite highly vigilant, like have hypervigilance almost. They're kind of always sensing in their environment things that feel safe or unsafe to them. Whereas somebody with an undefined spleen is often picking up on the fears of somebody else in their environment. They're
Right.
more aware of other people's fear than they are of their own sense of safety. And so when we're going through experiences like conversations like this, also just having this awareness that how we process, perceive fear, how we recognize fear can be very, very different for each of us. Like we're all
Yeah.
individualized in that process. And so he's had some experiences in his life over the course of his lifetime, bless him, where he has experienced a sense of lack of safety in the home. And so, again, the conditioning that we pick up over a lifetime, and then layer on top of that, he has a hypervigilance, natural hypervigilance for his own sense of safety. There's going to be this amplification
Yeah.
in there as well.
Yeah.
How,
Absolutely.
working with a lot of children, Sue, I know especially when it comes to educational systems, and I can go back to my own experience of being afraid to actually go to school and having a lot of anxiety around going to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you think fear plays a role in the work that you do?
I work primarily with children or teenagers and some adults who've been diagnosed or are undiagnosed with specific learning issues like dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, all of the labels, mutism, etc. So if we're going to look at those let's call them labels for now, through the filter of fear, then we've got several interesting factors actually that we can consider. So, one of the reasons why somebody might, let's just use dyslexia, that word, it could be any of these. Let's just say somebody's got a diagnosis of dyslexia. If we're looking at that from a neurological developmental perspective, we can track that right back possibly in this, let's just say we can track it back in this hypothetical case, to somebody who had a big fright, went into Moro reflex, and their system, I'm going to say, stopped developing loosely. Let's just say they went into a fear state and struggled to come out of it, which is sometimes the case. So sometimes maybe the mother might have been pregnant, had a bereavement or a shock. Maybe she was very ill when she was pregnant. Maybe baby was ill. Something scared the baby, like big time. I'm not talking just making you jump. I'm talking something that's big. So you go into a Moro state, and then development after that is affected. So and I think this is a lot of us. A lot of us have an active Moro reflex. Well, it changes into the adult human startle reflex as we get older. But so we can still have that fear level in our body because it comes from shock. So shock, the body keeps score. Shock doesn't automatically leave the body. Animals, on the other hand, if they get something like something scares them, they run, they run off that adrenaline, whereas humans don't tend to. So the shock stays in our system. And I'm acutely aware of this when I'm working with my patients, because let's just extrapolate that a few years forward. This child with this, maybe that had this shock when they were younger, did a Moro reflex state, has still running shock in their body. They're now at school, they've got a dyslexia thing going on. So all of the muscles and nerves that control their eyes didn't get to develop properly because maybe they didn't crawl, maybe they didn't do all the things they need to do. And now they're sitting in a classroom without the physical classroom skills to track from the board and write things down. And they're easily distractible because their reflexes are kicking off every time they move their head or whatever. Um, So they're getting nagged by the teacher, you're misbehaving, you're naughty, stay in, there's something wrong with you. Da, da, da. In the olden days when I was at school, um, when the world was in black and white, back in the 70s, there was the word dyslexia was spoken in hushed terms. Oh my God, nobody really knew what it was. It was just a thing, they can't read properly or they can't spell, shock horror. And dyscalculia didn't even have a name, which is something I have. I've been a bit dyscalculate. And so there was a lot of shame attached to it. Children would have been told off, shouted at, they'd have felt something was wrong, they don't know what's wrong. And so you've got this underlying uh, anxiety, this underlying fear, the fear of having suddenly being called out to read in class when you can't. Things get overwhelming. So the patients who come to me are dealing with all of that. So they bring that into my clinic. So how do I work with that? I make sure that, well, the parents of the children I work with say I'm half mad scientist and half children's entertainer. So they come in and it's all a little bit bonkers and a little bit offbeat. And the child is not the focus necessarily of the session, especially for the first 10, 20 minutes while I create rapport, get them to trust me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
everybody is like my patient. So I might be testing the mum, or we don't call them tests, we call them games. I might be like playing a game with a mum or playing a game with a dad or the brother or whoever, because I encourage them to bring various family members in, because then they can see what's going on with a child, and it creates so much more support for the child. It's lovely. So when they come into me, I'm aware that they're all coming in. I have mums on the verge of tears, and they come in, and I just make sure that everything's a little bit fun, and like I might use a banana as a telephone and just make things
Yeah.
playful and just really, really nurturing, like not over the top nurturing, but really nurturing, so that
Mm.
the child and the mum, everyone always feels completely safe with me. And we run through this battery of tests, which are games. And the child has no sense of success or failure. It's just like, oh, how did we do that? That's interesting, isn't it? How did mummy do that? Oh, isn't that interesting how you did that a bit differently? What an exciting experiment. Because I always say to them at the start, I hear you're really into science and experiments. Let's learn things about the brain. And so that's the way I deal with it. And then while we're doing neurodevelopment, because you're reworking the brainstem, it kind of, and I do kind of breathing stuff with them. I get stuff to get their diaphragm working, and that automatically calms their neurological system. I do all this with them, and all of these problems just melt away. It takes a few months, probably, but it melts away. I've had children children who come who've never slept,
Oh,
never.
wow.
And one of the things I do in the screen, or also the screening, the test, the games, is really tiring for a child, because I'm pushing their neurological skills to the limit to find out what's going on, but not in a bad way. But they just, after 45 minutes they're knackered. So I often cover them up with a blanket and say, don't move, just stay there and sleep. I do that more so now, but in the olden days, a child would just fall asleep on the floor. And I've had two dads say to me, "You've killed him." I went, "No, he's asleep. He's never done that before."
It's been stretched. It's been stretched. But I mean that to me is fascinating as well, because I'm looking at that and going, well, there's so much going on there, right? There's so much going on there. But from what I'm seeing there is actually also not just the amount of activity and the stretching of the brain and the working more than perhaps they used to,
Yeah,
but also what I'm seeing there is a complete state of relaxation, because
yeah,
it takes a lot for somebody to fall asleep in an environment that they don't know, that
yeah,
isn't their natural environment
yeah,
necessarily. It takes a lot for somebody to actually get to a state where they can rest and digest, for their nervous system to come down to a place where they feel safe to rest and digest completely. And so it's not like, I mean, that just also shows a testament to actually the level of safety that you're creating in that environment for somebody with the way that you work. Like, that's bloody brilliant. That's
yeah,
amazing. And of course, for the parents on the other side of that, just going, my child just fell asleep. Like, just like that for the first time in a
yeah.
really
Because they've been trying for 10 years or 8 years or 6 years to get that child to go to sleep, and nothing's working. And now with me, and they just do it.
Sleep's such a fascinating one as well. Like because every design type in human design has a way, as I said at the beginning, that they're designed to use their energy. So, for example, like all of our generators, both the generators and manigens, they're here to use their energy. They have this generative energy. As long as they're doing work that they love, they will keep going and keep going and keep going. And so, uh, again, from a parent to child perspective, if you're trying to put a generator or a manigen to bed at a certain time before they've actually been able to use that energy that they've got available, you're going to find them fighting bedtime. They're going to struggle to sleep. It's going to be frustrating to them. It's going to create a whole bunch of chaos at bedtime because the energy that they had inside of have inside of them just wants to be used. It's not being used up.
Yeah.
Whereas, like our projectors, for example, they really are. I don't want to call them more stationary, but they're slower beings. They don't have access to that consistent, sacral, creative, doing, being energy. They are not consistent access to it. So our projectors are really designed for like a slower pace of life, more rest and relax, because they're here to observe, to think, to absorb, to show us what we're here to refine in the world. They're here to use their energy to go very deep and not big and bold and outwards. It's like deep and refined, deep and refined. And so for a projector, if they are waiting until they're exhausted, it's like generators, let them wait until their body's exhausted and they're tired and they will sleep. And they will sleep sound and
Yeah.
they will sleep and they'll have really great sleep. For our projectors, it's like when a projector's waiting until the point of collapse, they've already gone too far. A projector's going to burn out a lot quicker than a generator or a manigen. So for our projectors, it's like you want to actually create yourself a nice environment, a time where you rest, you get into bed, you might read a little bit, you might shut the lights out, but you might meditate for a little while, but you want to give yourself time to wind down and time to settle in to sleep and give yourself ample time for rest because you need to regenerate. That battery pack isn't there in the same way. So every single design type as well is designed to use their energy differently throughout the day. And depending on how you're being allowed to do that, and I can see this playing out in children so much, is that in school environments, your time for what you're passionate about and love is constricted to so many
Yeah.
hours. And then your energy is being forced to be used in certain ways that may not really be what you're here to use your energy for. And I'm not saying this is good or bad or system school, like I have my own opinion on school systems, that's not it. But it's like we're forcing people to use their life force in
Yeah.
strict linear ways that not everybody was designed to use their mind, their body, their
Yeah.
soul, their spirit in the ways that we ask them to in a school environment. So when
Yeah.
you
And
go
how
on.
interesting, because you're talking about it from a human design perspective. I know that from a neurological perspective. So I'm a left-hander and I'm hugely creative. I'm
Mm.
happiest when I'm making stuff or writing a book or playing, playing around with my patients and having fun. I love that because it's very zen. You're very in the moment, right? And that's very, very right hemisphere. So that's all the creativity and the but school is designed for right-handers with a very strong left hemisphere, which is order, logic, processes. Okay, so for me, I think because I'm a lefty with a strong right hemisphere, I think in overviews. So if I'm learning the alphabet when I'm 5, I need to understand that there are 26 letters, 5 of them are vowels. Y sounds like a vowel. There are 16 different vowel sounds, but here they all are. Before I even look at the letter A, right?
Yeah.
That's how my brain needs to conceptualize this. However, in school, for the right-handers with a strong left hemisphere, this is the letter A. This is what it looks like. This is the letter B, and they go through in a linear process. So us right dominant people are looking for the overview in the A, looking for the overview in the B, and we don't find it till we've got to the end of the alphabet. And so school is really frustrating for our style of thinking. And what else was I going to say about that? Um, and because school is designed for people with a strong this hemisphere, it's harder for us with this hemisphere because it's not designed for us. So it's like life through the looking glass.
Mm.
And it's not a really well understood thing, I don't think, that how differently. us right hemisphere dominant people think. And the things that I've got a few pages about this in the manual I use when I teach my students. The different ways in which we think and the different, because I'm not a mathsy, ordered, logical, neat and tidy thinker. I'm like, I've got all my browser windows open, really creative. I mean, I can be ordered and logical. I've had to do that, but it's not where I am naturally. And
Mm.
so when you overlay all of these different things, like all of the things you know, all of the things I know, there's so many different ways to be and so many different ways to understand people. And it's brilliant, isn't it?
It's absolutely fascinating. And whilst you were talking, Sue, I was like just pulling up your chart, and I was like, I wonder how this relates to a certain aspect in your human design. So
Yeah.
when you get a human design chart, we have these four arrows, and they either face left or right. Okay, these arrows are known as our variables, and the variables show us various different ways in which we were designed to process in the world. And a lot of the rest of your human design is about your body, how our body wisdom. But the arrows, yes, in some ways they're to do with the body, but a lot of it is about how we were designed best to create conscious perception, how we were designed, what things we need in our lives in order for us to think most efficiently, to create most efficiently, to process information and knowledge most efficiently, so that we can basically prime our systems to be at their best, to be at their most efficient. And so I was looking at your chart and I was like, I was sure that when we looked at your chart before, that you had a lot of left facing variables and you were over here talking about the right brainness. So I opened up your chart and I was like, oh, okay, I've got to check this out. I want to see where this connects. And so you do have a lot of left facing variables in your chart. And when we're looking at human design, the left facing variables are about structure, systems, procedures, timing. And then everything that you're talking about, one of your variables faces right. And so a lot of what you were just talking about actually lies in that right facing variable. It deeply connects to that. And I actually have a question for you because now I'm really curious.
Go
When it
on.
comes to your environment, oh, I just want to talk about your environment a little bit. Do you find that by changing your environment, you become more creative or less creative?
Uh, I don't know. Do you mean when I'm at home or when I'm out? How do you mean?
So anywhere, generally, like, so for example, if you're in the same place doing the same thing, not necessarily doing the same things, but like you're in the same room and you're there for a really long time, and that's where you always go to do a certain type of work, do you find that that makes your work less creative, or like if you were to shift up the environment but try to do the same thing? Let's say we're creating a piece of art.
Yeah.
We're creating a piece of artwork. If I do it in the same place, the same time every single day, am I able to be my most creative there? Or if I shift up my environment, does my artwork expand?
I don't know. I mean, in here, I'm in the kitchen. I do my sewing in here because
Okay.
it's a big table and I have space to work.
Mhm.
But if I'm planning on making something or I'm creating a pattern, then I can do that anywhere because I often look on Pinterest or I've got my protractor out and I'm designing something. So I do a lot of sewing and love making things.
Yeah.
But I generally sew in here. If I'm making jewelry, which I do a lot, I do that on the top floor because that's where all my jewelry stuff is. And I do sometimes sit there and go, I'm really not inspired by any of my bits of beads or crystals or what, or I'm really not. So sometimes I do, but if I've got the right materials, I'm all go.
Yeah.
But I love beautiful fabrics. I love beautiful fabrics that are either beautiful colors or beautiful feel, or they're soft or they're just good quality. And I just love things like that. And that's why I like crystals because they're beautiful. And um, that's the creativity thing. I
Is
also
that
do a lot of gardening and I design on paper and I design by just staring at the garden for ages. I don't know, does that answer anything?
no, it really does. So your environment style is the observer and also markets external, which is why I asked this question, because first of all, the environment style is the observer. means that a lot of people with an observer environment style are more absorbing of the information. They're not necessarily there to be the center of attention and for all eyes to be on me. It's like, actually, I'm observing what's happening in this space. I'm being inspired what's happening by what's in this space. So when you were just talking there about like the materials, it's like actually the materials itself, as I'm observing that, feeling that, interacting with that, I'm getting inspired by what I've got available to me. So if what I've got available to me stays stagnant, the inspiration stays stagnant. But when
Yeah.
I'm able to bring in a new material, or I'm able to bring in a new aspect to my environment that shifts the environment, then my creativity changes.
Yeah.
So whereas the observed's like I'm active in my environment. I have to be active all of the time. I need to be busy all of the time in the environment that I'm in. The observer is more taking a backseat, and it's like I'm experiencing the environment I'm in. I'm observing
Yeah.
it, I'm sensing it, I'm tasting it.
Yeah. That's me, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
something.
very sensitive to my environment. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And noises, if there's different noises, I'm like, what was that? Yeah. Or if light comes in differently, if the clouds suddenly come over, I'm really sensitive to it. Or suddenly there's a rainbow over there. I love
Really,
that. So yeah, I'm very, but then I think as a therapist, and you can probably relate to this too, we have to be so tuned in to our patients that the emotional temperature is really refined. So people who don't have to have that level of sensitivity to know if a patient's getting upset or if how they are. So perhaps every 1 degree for someone else is 10 degrees for us. We micro feel what's sensitive to other people's energies. Do you know what I mean?
gosh, 100% know what I mean. Do you mind if I share your chart for a minute on the
Yeah,
screen?
go for it.
I just
Because I
so
really don't know much about human design, but I've heard of it obviously and stuff for over a number of years, but it's not something I'm educated in.
what this is fact. Like I love these conversations, as you know, and I will
Yeah.
go on and on and on and on and on. But this is fascinating for me. Oh, it's doing that thing where it doesn't want to show me the full chart for some reason. Let me just do this just to get it to play with me and be friendly. There we go. So this is a human design chart, and this is Sue's beautiful human design chart. And I wanted to just draw attention to something because this is actually a big part of the work that I do. So we haven't actually said this, but I tend to work with entrepreneurs and I help them to pull out their gifts and their skills and their what we call their definition in their design, and to create businesses that help them to work in alignment with who they were always designed to be, how they were always designed to exchange energy in the world, and also to really, there's like a part of it that helps them to build sustainably without burning themselves into the ground, but keeping their well-being intact. There's another part of my work that is about actually helping people to grow confident in doing things their way, in recognizing that they weren't designed to build a business. And this is where our work kind of fits in really beautifully, recognizing that you weren't designed to create in the same way as other people. You weren't designed to operate your business in the same way as other people, and to get you really confident in recognizing your gifts and skills and magic that you bring to the table and
Yeah.
crafting a business that actually leverages all of those. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, a lot of the time, what we're looking at is where you're defined in your chart. That's where your centers and gates and channels are colored in. So
Yeah.
all of these, you have a lot of definition in your chart, and I love it. So where you're defined is where you have consistent, reliable energy access to these potential energies, and each energy has a theme. Now, where we're defined, we can say that there are natural gifts, there are consistent ways of being, because it's where our energy wants to flow through the path of least resistance. So this is what we bring to the table. This is what we give. This is who we be in any given moment.
Yeah.
Now, when I say potential, that's because it's available within you. But how much of that potential over the course of your lifetime that you've activated, tapped into, actually utilized is going to depend on how much you've seen it and valued it in your life.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of our design. What I really wanted to bring attention to in terms of this conversation is the undefined parts of our chart. Because where you're undefined is actually where you sense the world around you. This is where
Oh,
we take in the world around us. So what we are defined in, you could say we give out, it's who we be, and it's what we project out beyond us. But where we're undefined, this is how we're sensing, receiving, processing the world. And so this is where we tend to have one, and the biggest influences and experiences in our lives, because this is what we're picking up and sensing through the world. It's also where we are most likely to create wisdom
yeah.
through our learning and our lessons. And it's also where we are likely to create a lot of conditioning. And by conditioning, I mean where we are learning about the world through these centers because it's what we receive. And we become conditioned by it because we start to believe that other people's energy is our own. We start to take it on board as our own. And the emotional center, the solar plexus, this center here, and where Sue was just talking about the sensitivity to emotions that we require as therapists,
Yeah.
was really interesting. Because as an undefined emotional center, you are somebody that is sensitive and to receives and experiences other people's emotions strongly.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't have emotions of your own, of course you do. But what happens in an undefined emotional center who is not self-aware is that when somebody else in your environment feels really excited, you start to feel really excited. You pick up on their excitement and you thrive off it and you throw it back at them and you
Yeah.
take excitement and you kind of take ownership over it. When they're angry, you can pick up that anger and you can amplify it back to them.
Yeah.
So the open solar plexus doesn't just mirror the energy that it's receiving, but it also amplifies it. It's an amplifier of energy. So
Yeah.
someone's a little bit excited about something and they're telling an open solar plexus about it, and the open solar plexus is experiencing that excitement within their body, and then they amplify the excitement and they put that back out there as an amplification of the energy of the room
Yeah.
and the emotional landscape of the room. So we are, as open emotional beings, we can be very great therapists with awareness.
Yeah.
Where it becomes where it becomes conditioning is where we allow other people's emotions to drive our decisions, our behaviors, to override our state of being, to override our decision making. Uh,
Yeah.
we can see things happen here like people pleasing and all of that. I won't go into that so much. But
Yeah.
what makes this great as a therapist, if you can recognize that the shift in energetic in the room, the emotional landscape that's just changed,
Yeah.
again, spoke about right at the beginning, isn't
Yeah.
necessarily yours to take responsibility over. It's just information about the other person. Where we where it's like I get to recognize that this other person right now is feeling I felt their shift. They suddenly shifted into sadness. As soon as I said that, I noticed that there was almost a grief that came across the room. And I
Yeah.
can
100%.
when we're aware, we recognize that it's not our own grief. And when
Yeah.
we go, oh, I suddenly feel really heavy, I feel really sad, I don't know why. So that, as a therapist and as somebody who works very closely with people, and that's kind of the wisdom that you get from the solar plexus is the emotional intelligence
Yeah.
piece.
That's so interesting, Amber. Actually, that's it. I just thought it was something that I'd honed over years, not that something like that was innate. So that's very interesting to learn.
Oh, and that's the beautiful thing. Over the years, the wisdom will have grown with you through your experiences of other people's emotions.
Yeah.
And because of the field that you've been drawn to and because of the work that you've fallen in love with as a beautiful sacral being, it's all about the passion and the love for what you do.
Yeah.
Because of that, you it's like, what's the word? You've been drawn to a field that's very aligned for you. Because
Yeah.
somebody with a defined emotional center, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean they can't be a therapist.
Yeah.
You can find that when I'm working with defined emotionals, they'll say things like, people sometimes think I'm a bit cold. It's not that they're cold, it's that they don't feel your emotion. They logically understand your emotion.
Yeah.
So a therapist that doesn't have an open emotional center will be using a lot of logic base. They're looking at your body language and trying to understand it, trying to analyze it.
But
But for
it's
someone,
not visceral like it is for us. Yeah.
yeah, it's a logical process. I've got to understand you. I've got to think
Yeah.
about why you might have shifted your body in this way or why you've said what you've said. Like they're very logically trying to grasp the emotional landscape.
Yeah.
We're very much sensing it and feeling it.
Yeah.
You could say our open emotionals are our empaths in that sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that is interesting.
and I just thought I'd bring that to the table just to be kind of, we're all designed and primed already for the paths that our soul wants to take us on. It's like
Yeah.
you were led down this path for a reason, but you already have access to everything within you that you needed in order to be great at it.
Yeah.
And so, and again, you can see how you're like, oh, I feel like that's something that I've learned over time. That's something how I've grown. Well, yeah, that's what the open centers are in our lives. There are portals of growth, there are portals of wisdom. And I just said, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna like hold back a minute. I will get all fired up, but I just think it's
I
the
love
most.
that. But that's really nice for me to hear because when my little boy was 6 and really struggling at school and I was so worried about him and he wasn't happy and I could just feel how much sadness he had in him and that drove me to work out all this neurodevelopment and start helping him, which then turned into my life. So
Yeah,
amazing that I could do that for him and thousands of other children since. How lovely. And
that's
that's
that
just who I am.
like, incredibly emotional as a mother and as a friend, and just thinking about. I recently heard something that it was in Melanie Ann Layer's space. She's a beautiful mentor, beautiful coach, beautiful guide. And she spoke about the life experiences that we have that at the time when we're in them feel sometimes so uncomfortable, so like can feel dark, heavy, whatever it is. But that when we look back on them, we have that, but because of that moment.
Yeah.
So for me, because that interaction with my son, okay, it wasn't a big thing, but it was an interaction nonetheless. I could look at that in the moment and go, I just don't understand. I don't seem to be able to communicate with him properly. I don't understand why, like, every communication we have ends up in a conflict, blah, 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 blah. I can get into that cycle with it.
Yeah.
Or I can look at it and say, because of this, I'm going to learn to become a better communicator. And
Yeah.
because I learn to become a better communicator, it's not just going to improve my relationships with my children, but it's going to improve the relationships that I have with all kinds of people in my life. It's going to improve the quality of my relationships. And because of that, because I improve the quality of my relationships, I also improve the quality of connection to myself. And because of that, this happens. And because of that, this happens. And so when we look back on our life story and our life experiences like that, and you say, all of the challenges, all of the sadness that I felt, but because I felt all of that, I was led to learn more about neurodivergency so that I could help him, and so neurodevelopment so that I could help and support him. And because of that experience, I'm now able to help all of these thousands of people, thousands of children that come through my door, the parents, and all of the lives that that touches beyond the people that you actually get to work with and see. And because of that, I'm now led to do X, Y, and Z. And it's just, if we can look at our life as like this series of every event, good or bad, every experience, fulfilling or not, as it's because of these things in my life that I
Mm.
get to do
Yeah, we
something.
make our stumbling blocks into stepping stones.
Mm, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, so magical. I feel like you've just lit me alive, lit me like fully on fire and alive from the inside out with that.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is why I love these chats with you because we don't know where it's going to go, do we? And we just talk about the things we know, and it's just really, really interesting and insightful.
I guarantee though, Sue, almost every chat is going to have me like coming nearly to tears as a result. Because it's always so deep. Like we start off at like this nice, beautiful surface level. And it's like the deeper we go, the more that's coming out. Um, but yeah, what a beautiful gift. What a
Yeah,
beautiful gift. Okay. Well, I feel like we're like came to like this little completion point, this little point in the journey of the
yeah.
conversation where it's like, that's the gold. If there was anything that you would share with somebody from today's conversation that might be listening to this that is struggling, or like whether it be for themselves or with their child, to we've covered so many topics. I was like, I don't even know which topic to pick up on now. So, just anything that you take away from today, what would be like your biggest message to someone listening to everything that we've spoken about today?
So one of the things that's comforted me most over the years from my own forays into helping people is that there's always or usually an answer. You've just got to find it. And so I was told that there was no cure for XYZ like loads of times in my life, which proved to be wrong. So we can have all these belief systems and these frameworks of belief around things that aren't necessarily true. And if we do investigate things, then maybe there are ways that can help people. Like I was told with my son's dyslexia, there's no cure, you've just got to learn to live with it. And that he wouldn't be able to read his name till he was 12. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So people's belief systems can really, really inhibit us. So it's best to find out for ourselves. And even if they're right, then they're right, but they might be wrong.
Yeah. And kind of, and to follow that up by saying, where there's a will, there's a way. If there's one thing that I have learned on this journey over the past few years, over the past 11 years since becoming a mum as well, is that there is no right or wrong way. It's like, what do you desire? You know, when you're like in a state of stress or worry, a child struggling, and seemingly by systematic ways they're behind or they're underdeveloped or whatever other terms that we want to place on this, and you're in a state of worry and panic or fear for them and for your child. One of the things that helped me most was to recognize that my fear is just showing me what I care about. And if I focus more attention and energy onto what I care about, for example, I care that they are able to read and get through the world, or I care that they just feel safe and loved, or I care that their other gifts are recognized more than their weaknesses, or I care whatever it is I care about, let me focus on that. Because if I'm focused on I care about the fact that they feel loved and safe in their environments, then let me focus on finding the right environments for them to feel loved and safe and cared for in,
Yeah,
and that
100.
you
Gorgeous.
create environments.
Yeah,
If I care about their development, let me find the people that can help them to develop. Let me spend my time and energy not focused on what they can't do, but on what's available out there
yeah.
to help them get to where I want to go.
People want to feel included and part of things.
Mm.
And being socially excluded is more damaging. Oh, Marissa Peer was talking about this. More damaging than something I've forgotten. Is devastating. So if we're feeling excluded, then that causes us a great deal of harm. So that feeling that somebody feels excluded might be really subtle and not noticeable to somebody else. And they
Mm.
might be actually included, but they don't perceive they are, or they don't feel like they are. And it's about having that understanding into somebody else's behaviour to help them feel included and part of things and understood, especially in the work I do. It's all about scooping everybody up and bringing them in and helping them feel part of things when they haven't.
Mm. Wow, I feel like that could be another whole hour-long conversation. So, another
Yeah,
hour-long
won't we?
conversation. We will. We'll have to come back and do more of these because that let's just make a note of that one. At the end of this one, let's make a note of the next conversation we could pick up on is a sense of belonging.
Yeah, because it's literally the most fundamental thing. If we were meerkats and we were excluded from our bunch of meerkats and we had to make our way in the desert, we wouldn't survive. So we need our people, we need our bunch to thrive and survive. So
Absolutely.
that is,
We are social creatures. We're wired for connection.
yeah. And when we don't have that, or when we lose it, or when we get disconnected, it's extremely harmful. And that's where a lot of fear comes from, going back to that fear of being excluded, feeling of being ostracized, feeling of all of those things, speaking out. And that's why when you've got the Ash conformity experiment, that's why people go with the group. Do you know about the Ash conformity experiment?
I don't, but as you were saying that, it was reminding me of the inner circle. Um,
So if I ask you which one of those is longer, which one's longer?
at the moment, the one on, well, my right, I don't know if we're
Yeah,
mirrored, but yeah, the pen.
clearly obvious. However, if there were 50 other people in this room telling you that the red one was longer, there is a big chance you'd agree with them.
So I was almost going, well, if you fold the red one out and you flip the knife out and you flip the corkscrew bit out, and then that one's going to be longer. I could have made that argument. That was me being pedantic.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So,
yeah, I see what you mean.
so the Ash conformity experiment, it's really worthwhile looking that one up on YouTube. People will agree against their own beliefs to stay in with the group.
Yeah,
And whilst, I mean, I just did a video on this a few weeks ago on YouTube, on my own YouTube, about the Ash conformity experiment, Stockholm syndrome, and a few other things. And instead of looking at it negatively, it can be negative, it can be positive, it just depends. But it's all about fitting in with the group and staying safe and connected.
mm. Oh gosh, there's a whole other conversation around this because the same time as that, I recognize that, and again, I'm not an expert on this, this isn't my field of expertise, but just through personal experience, that for some people, being able to pick up on those cues, being able to understand that's what's going on in this room and space, and being the one that's outspoken and stuck on their opinions because their opinion is their opinion and they're solid in their opinion, can also feel really damaging to
Yeah,
not be able to be the one that goes along with the crowd or goes along with what's
yeah,
being.
yeah. It's risky from a survival perspective. It's risky because you risk being ostracized from the group, and that's dangerous. Not
Yeah,
so much these days, but historically, and that's how we're wired.
it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when we say not so much these days, and if I was to contemplate this, it's not.
Yeah,
I don't believe that it's not dangerous these
yeah.
days.
No, I
I
agree
believe
with you
that it's
actually.
not dangerous in the same way. It's
Yeah,
a different layer. Whereas before, it might have meant no food, no shelter, no water, no access to tribal security and protection.
all of that.
Actually, now it might not mean that you don't have a roof over your head or food in your stomach, but there are other real dangers to
Yeah,
our
social
well-being,
exclusion, loneliness. Yeah,
loneliness, mental health issues,
yeah,
job prosperity, your ability to be employed
yeah.
can be
All of
affected.
that. All of
Yeah,
that.
all sorts of things, all sorts of things. Excellent. Well, I really do have to wrap up, Sue, because I do have to crack on. I've got some other things to do this afternoon, but I love speaking with you, and let's
Oh,
do it again.
likewise.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. And once again, I've 100% enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing this again and going on another subject. So I think we could talk for years.
We'll be talking for years. That's kind of the point. We will be talking for years, and we can just let people into these little conversations and take from it what they will. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay,
All
so
right, my darling. Lots of love. Thank you so much for
you too.
today, and let's catch up again really soon.
Will do. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye, darling. Bye.